we welcome in Adam Caplan, NFL columnist for ProFootballNetwork.com, Sirius XM radio host as well. Good morning, Adam. How are you?
Guys, I'm well. Yeah, good timing here because I'm just about wrapping up my 21st training camp schedule. Yeah, I started covering the league back in 2000. My first tour was in 2005, and as I look at my schedule now, I'll be visiting with the Commanders, I think twice. It looks like I'll see them for joint practice against the Jets, and then I'll be another day in Ashburn. So I always like visiting with the Commanders, their front office, and their coaches. And
nice.
And a team that, I'll tell you what, folks, there's been a lot of chatter around NFL people I've spoken with. People like the draft that they've had on Adam Peters and think the roster is much better.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I would assume the number one thing you're interested in is the development of Jaden Daniels. What other storylines are you curious about?
Yeah, and that would be one. Cliff Kingsbury's offense, which I studied. You know, he came real close to getting the Eagles' offense coordinator job, by the way, and also with the Raiders, they couldn't work a contract out. So Cliff is now with Dan Quinn here. Cliff runs a spread offense. I've talked to coaches who work with him. This is a guy that's really smart. He started using tight ends a little bit more late in his tenure with the Cardinals, but a guy that I saw at the Senior Bowl, Ben Sinnott, was so good. Now, I didn't know that he'd go as high as he did in the second round, but from what I was told, that's where he should have gone because he's got versatility to play a little fullback. He's pretty athletic. He's a pretty good player. And you mentioned the Daniels story. And then defensively, Johnny Newton, who's coming off NFI today, which is a good story. Sanistril is a guy that I'm interested to see what they do with him because Quan Martin was really drafted by Ron Rivera to be their nickel DB, and I'm just interested to see how DQ sees this roster because when you have a new coaching staff and a new front office, they're new to these players. Yep. The guys that they didn't draft. Now, the draft is also interesting, and again, this is a team that a lot of people think could be a little bit better than people are projecting.
Adam, you touched on Sinnott in the tight end room. What do you think of Zach Ertz, the one-year signing? He obviously has familiarity with Kingsbury's system. Do you think he still has something left in the tank? I think if he's healthy, he can be a real positive influence for Jaden Daniels. Yeah,
it's funny you bring him up because I was at a wedding with someone who's very close to, so I actually was talking to this person who's close to Zach, and it sounds like he's super happy to be back with Cliff because what coaches want is, and you see this anytime a coordinator comes in, coordinator will say, hey, could I get this player or could I get this coach to work with me? But more specifically, to get someone like Zach Ertz who knows this offense, it's really important. No, this is, and look, Zach is a Super Bowl winner. He's won a lot, made a lot of money. He's got a great family. This is a good situation. In fact, I think, their tight end room is really interesting. I mentioned Sinnott. John Bates is a decent all-around tight end. Mm-hmm. I know Monty Rogers, they were really excited about the previous staff, and unfortunately he had the ACL injury. Colt Turner, who's what we call a move tight end, who I saw at the Senior Bowl 2 years ago out of Nevada. This guy's pretty talented. So this room now with Ertz being the elder statesman, this could be a little bit more interesting group here with Cliff Kingsbury.
Look at this,
Adam.
I'm hearing some optimism. I like it.
That's a good
Adam,
thing.
I didn't give the record though. Now, I didn't say they were going to make the playoffs, but I base a lot of this talking to front office executives around the league, evaluated their draft and their roster. Coaches who know the coaches on the staff have given me some good intel on DQ, Joe Witt Jr., and all the assistants. So I feel like I know this team pretty well, and I really look forward to visiting them this summer.
By the way, what is your opinion on Ron? Because
Can't
Ron,
be good.
It won't shut up. He was so annoying here. Nice guy. Everybody likes him. Blah, 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 blah. One of the worst coaches we've had here.
Honestly, here's what happened, okay? Here's what happened. Dan Snyder made a mistake in giving Ron personnel control. Mm-hmm. Look, I don't know Ron personally. You know how hard it was. Can you imagine having to work for Dan Snyder? I mean, it's impossible. It's just a tough
Plus,
task.
he got cancer. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and Ron's a good man. He just was given too much responsibility.
He wasn't good at it.
And look, I'm calling
What's
it down the
he good
middle.
at,
I don't know the guy personally. I'm just taking a 360 overview, whatever you want to call it. It was given way too much responsibility. Now, look, some of the drafts were really good, some didn't develop, and that now it's up to Adam Peters, the general manager, and DQ and Lance Newmark, who's Peters' right-hand man, to get this thing flipped. And I think they're definitely on their way in terms of the draft and free agency.
All right, I don't know if you're a gambler, but I am. I'm an addicted sports gambler.
He's a degenerate.
I'm not, but I do talk on a Sports Grid. One of the companies I work for is Sports Grid, so I talk futures and stuff all the time.
Love it. I mean, I've been gambling on sports since I was like 16 years old.
You're degenerate.
In high school. I'm a DJ and a fantasy guy, too. That's just my life.
So am I. Yeah, so am I.
But I wanted to ask you about a couple. First of all, we'll stick with I want to get to the Eagles, too, but stick with the Commanders.
Sure.
On FanDuel, it's 6.5. Would you go over or under the 6.5 based on what you see and what you know?
All right, here's my first question: Are they plus or minus? Or what's the number? Do you know the number offhand?
It's basically even money. It's minus 115 on the over, 105 on the under.
Okay. Yeah, I like the over. I do. I see them 7-8 wins. It's one of the ones that,
right.
If you watch my videos on Sports Grid, that's one of the ones I liked. I gave about 10 out. That was one I didn't love, but I liked it. If you had to take one, clearly the over. Now, we didn't talk about Jaden Daniels. I am a huge Jaden Daniels guy. I'm very close to about 5 or 6 quarterback coaches around the NFL. They all loved him, loved the kid, really good at processing, high-character kid, really gifted player. I like this group, that they have around him. We'll see about Luke McCaffrey where they line him up, but I think there's enough there for him to get off to a good start.
All right, let's move a little up 95 to Philly. I know you're very familiar with.
Sure.
Their FanDuel number's 10.5. Now you got a little bit more money, and obviously last year, the last 6 weeks was just bad. Hurts was banged up. The offensive line was terrible. Defense couldn't stop anybody. I'm guessing their win total last year was higher than 10.5. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was.
It's actually 11 or 11.5 because remember they should have won the Super Bowl. They were
right.
They were the heavy favorite, and they didn't beat the Chiefs. But look, the roster's better than last year. The coaching's better because it's funny, they've been running the Fangio scheme for 3 years now. They got the real guy. And offensively, Kellen Moore's a top 10, top 5 offensive coordinator. So I expect the coaching to be better. Now, look, you mentioned Jalen Hurts. He had a knee injury last year.
Yes.
He just wasn't right physically. He didn't play well. Before he got hurt, he actually was not really playing really well. That's what the tape showed. They had Barkley. They've had some good pass rushers now, but they lost Jason Kelsey, who's going to go to the Hall of Fame, and Fletcher Cox, who was a first-round pick in 2012, who has a shot to go to the Hall of Fame. You're not going to overcome that. It's going to be hard. They've got younger, which is a good thing for the most part, but they're not the roster that they had 2 years ago. They what's interesting? I don't know if you guys even know this. It's one of the most ridiculous divisional stats. No one has won the NFC East back-to-back since 2004. It's true.
Yep.
The Eagles they won 2001 through 2004, and then no one's won it back-to-back. So obviously, if you go by that, Dallas won't win it. The Giants certainly won't win it. I don't know how they made the playoffs 2 years ago. It was great coaching. And then Washington is on a rebuild here, but they're definitely going up.
Adam, you touched on the Giants. How nervous is Joe Shane going to be when the Eagles face the Giants twice? And he's just praying that Saquon Barkley doesn't destroy the Giants in those two matchups because, his job's on the line.
I think he will.
He let Saquon walk, goes to a division rival. We've seen it on Hard Knocks. John Mara was like, I just don't know if I can stomach it if Saquon signs with the division rival, signs with the hated Eagles. How do you think that dynamic's going to play out?
Well, to give you an honest, just to compare it, though they're a little bit different in that they weren't being filmed. So when the Titans and John Robinson, the general manager of the Titans, decided to trade A.J. Brown, they weren't close. Were not even remotely close to getting an extension done. In fact, what I reported then, I still believe is true. In fact, it's been interesting. So A.J. Brown, he had knee problems there. He wouldn't practice very much with the Titans. They were very worried about the longevity of his knees. With the Eagles, the only game he missed was he got hurt. He missed the playoff game against Tampa Bay. He suffered a knee injury, but you just never know with this stuff. So we talk about Barkley. What I find interesting with the Giants is they replaced him with Devin Singletary. He's not even remotely as talented. Now, he was with Joe Shane in Buffalo and Brian Dable, so they know him. His nickname's Motor. He did a good job for the Texans. I give him credit. It's probably the best he'd ever played, but he's not in Barkley's.
No.
He's not in Barkley's area of talent. Now, what I also think happened was, listen, these GMs, when they don't draft a player, Joe Shane did not draft Barkley. He has no allegiance to him. He has personnel control. Though I'm told he's got to run everything by John Mara, and in the end, unless he objects, he lets Shane do what he wants. So that's a team that's in transition. I'll say this much about Joe Shane. I don't know the guy personally. I'm glad that the fans got to see the way things are really done in the National Football League. He told the truth. Look, they were going to draft Jaden Daniels if he was there. Think about that, folks. Mm-hmm. And by the way, they tried to trade up, but they never would have gotten Daniels because he went at number 2.
I think he will. 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 I think he I think Barkley's, by the way, is going to have a bomb year. He's even money to have 1,000 yards rushing. I think as long as he stays healthy. Yeah, he's minus 115. I think he's going to get there. But real quick,
that's a great one.
Before we get, I'll let you go here. The win totals. The Bears are at 8.5, and you got to lay 160 to go over. I mean, I think that's
on the
nuts.
Under. Yeah. So Scott Farrell and I on a show called Coast to Coast. He and I don't see everything, agree on everything, but he and I are like, first of all, Eberflus is Coach of the Year. Like the odds are really favoring him.
Yeah.
In my report for Pro Football Network, I put out like Kevin Warren, the president, will make the call on Eberflus and Ryan Poles, the general manager, and the hype is so ridiculous. This is the hype team. Every year there's a hype team. My team 2 years ago, and I got that one right with the Lions, and you saw what happened last year with them. I'm not in on the Bears, folks. We'll see if I'm right. I know that they've done a great job of adding talent on offense. Absolutely no pass rush other than Montez Sweat, who's a decent pass rusher. Good secondary. If I had to take one side, it certainly would be the under. I don't like the over. I mean, basically, you're saying they have to win at least 9 games. I don't see that.
I know. That's just and you got to lay big money to get over that. It's just nuts.
Way big. Yeah, I agree with you.
Adam, we always love having you
stuff,
on, man. It's Adam Caplan,
Okay.
NFL columnist for ProFootballNetwork.com, Sirius XM host. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so we're neck deep in it. Training camp is happening right now. Players are out on the field in Ashburn. Training camp coverage on 106.7 The Fan is presented by Paul Henry's Window Installation. PaulHenry'sWindows.com, your clear home improvement choice. I've seen Jaden. Now, it's early, but I saw Jaden just threading the needle to the net. To that net, to the basket that he throws into.
I tell you.
Just pulling
Hey, JP Finley knows what he's doing.
Finley?
Yeah.
He gets the raw meats, the good.
Yeah, he's throwing meat to piranhas.
He gives the crowd what they want. He satisfies the mob. Like in Gladiator, he's tossing the bread up into the crowd. He knows what we want.
Dude,
he services the people.
Everyone's This is different than most years. Everyone's raving about Jaden.
Yes.
It's not like the Carson year. It's not like the
Well, it certainly wasn't like Haskins.
It's not like even how people liked him, but there was also questions. I mean, it's the first time everyone's been in sync like this since Robert.
I agree.
And Robert's first year was pretty darn good.
They may have found their guy.
I think we have.
Trying to keep
He's been here for 5 minutes.
I'm trying to keep it in my pants.
We're only 30 years late to the part. Like, eventually you got to find a guy.
You ain't kidding.
Yeah, I think they got their guy.
Hopefully that's the case.
I mean, the list of Redskins/Commander coaches that have made the playoffs twice.
Yeah.
It's like 2.
Yeah. It's not great.
Gibbs and George Allen. I think.
Not a great track record.